Welcome to Combat Recapped. In today's video, we'll be covering dangerous strikes in MMA that have been banned. Let's get to it. Most casual fans consider UFC fights as poorly regulated street fights. This may appear to be the case at first, given that competitors can utilize any fighting technique, but it's important to note that they compete under the unified regulations of MMA, which make this sport safer than you might think. For this video, we compiled a list of instances when MMA fighters broke the rules and used illegal strikes that are now frowned upon. Number 12. The 12-6 elbow. 12-6 elbow is a term rarely heard because most fighters do not do this dangerous illegal move.
Big elbows. No.
John Bones Jones was disqualified for the use of elbows in the conclusion 10th season of The Ultimate Fighter for using elbows against Matt Hamill. John was on his way to a TKO victory. But Jones made a critical mistake by striking with his elbow vertically straight down to Hamill's face and halted the fight, delivering Bones his first and only loss. Number 11. Hair pulling. Pulling your hair out is a street move. Although it is not a martial arts move, it can be used effectively in any circumstance. It would be damaging if it were allowed in the octagon, especially for competitors with longer hairstyle. In the UFC and MMA in general, hair pulling is officially prohibited. However, Royce Gracie, a well-known MMA fighter, was one of the very first to use this maneuver in 1994 against Kimo Leopoldo.
No, he represents the legacy, the family.
Leopoldo had Royce on his back and was crushing him. The legendary jiu-jitsu fighter dodged some brutal ground and pound and ultimately prevailed. Number 10. Biting. It's a no-brainer that biting your opponent is against the rules. An MMA fighter got disqualified from a novelty match in a miniature cage because he wouldn't stop biting his opponent. As he was taking a page out of Mike Tyson's playbook at UFC 47, first veteran Mike Kyle was nearly caught red-handed biting Wes Sims. After Kyle secured his first round knockout, a befuddled Sims protested that the victor had taken a liking to his chest. Video evidence would prove that Sims had significant teeth marks on his body. Number 9. Fish hooking. It's a given that this technique is banned just by name. Among the banned techniques is a fish hook, which essentially sees a fighter insert their fingers into the mouth or nose of their opponent and pulling. However, this highly unsavory technique has been used in the UFC, and surprisingly enough, the incident in question didn't take place in the promotion's dark ages. Instead, it happened on a 2014 UFC Fight Night card between veteran Brian Caraway and prospect Eric Perez. Number 8. Eye gouging. Eye gouging is a pretty serious issue in MMA. Just ask John Jones. Li Jingliang had one of the more dirty and obvious intentions against Jake Matthews.
From guard now, it's tight. Right there, guys.
He somehow thought it was a great idea to gouge his opponent's eyes. MMA star Priscilla Cachoeira was caught trying to gouge her opponent's eyes, Jillian Robertson, twice during her clash at UFC 269. Number 7. Stomps. Yes, stomping on an opponent's head or body is definitely not legal anymore, but they did cause some insane knockouts. This was very common in Pride and a lot of Japanese promotion. Shogun Rua destroyed Cyril Diabate with them, and even Hiromitsu Kanehara in his Pride stint. Nowadays, if a fighter tried to stomp on an opponent, it would end with a DQ or points deducted, depending on the condition of the fighter on the receiving. Number 6. Knees to grounded opponent. In other MMA promotions, knee kicks and stomps to a grounded opponent's head are completely illegal. Look no further than The Weekend at UFC 259, March 7, 2021, where UFC bantamweight Piotr Yan delivered a brutal knee to a grounded Aljamain Sterling's head. The fight was stopped by referee Mark Smith. Yan was disqualified, and Sterling was declared the new UFC bantamweight paper champion. Number 5. Soccer kicks. This has happened several times. A soccer kick is a term used in mixed martial arts to describe leg blows to a downed opponent. When Pride Fighting Championship was still active in Japan, they were commonplace, but circumstances have changed, and MMA has grown more mainstream and less violent. Zorobabel Moreira knocked out former UFC star Roger Huerta in the co-main event of One Fighting Championship with a powerful soccer kick to the side of his face and neck. Huerta fell to his knees, confused and dazed. The battle could have been called off long before the kick was delivered. Moreira himself appeared hesitant to give the blow, and let's not forget about this guy. Number 4. Low blows. Groin strikes are outrageous, but are accidental. However, just like other moves on this list, which are now deemed illegal in the UFC, they were legal in the organization at one point in time.
that is allowed in this competition.
A famous incident involving a fighter handing out groin strikes in the UFC is a 1994 fight between Keith Hackney and Joe Sun. After getting locked in a partial guillotine by Sun, Hackney resorted to at least a dozen dick punches before getting his neck free. He eventually won the fight soon after submission. While groin punches have now become almost absent from the UFC, we do see groin kicks every now and then, but as an occupational hazard rather than a malicious plan, fighters who were on the wrong end of accidental groin kicks are given a decent amount of time to recover. Number 3. Pile driving. Pile driving is another term for spiking your opponent on the head. It goes without saying that this is legal in WWE and was legal in Pride, but it is not legal in the UFC. Due to how dangerous it is, spinal injury can result in paralysis and death. Even if this happens, referees could stop the fight for repeated violations. Back then, even Bob Sapp had to use this move. Number 2. Rabbit punches. The fighter being cautioned not to punch the back of the head is another of the top things you'll see happen during the fight. The first match between Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir is one of the most illustrative instances of punching the back of the head.
Big question is, will Lesnar...
He ended up losing 1 point and started over while standing. Due to the interruption of the fight, Mir had a chance to recover and Lesnar ultimately lost. Number 1. Headbutting. In earlier MMA organizations, headbutts were permitted. However, currently, practically all MMA organizations ban them. In Roger Gracie's bout with Muhammad Lawal, for instance, Gracie was rocked by a headbutt that the referee didn't notice because it came so quickly. In another instance, Jared Cannonier, an Alaskan fighter, objected to Andrew McCain's hair-pulling antics during a tournament. He delivered a diving header into McCain's skull at the end of the first round, while McCain was wailing on his injured opponent. The referee called the fight off at that point, and that right there concludes this video. If you enjoyed this video, let us know how we did in the comment section down below. Be sure to subscribe to Combat Recapped and hit the notification bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.